Hey guys, today I just wanted to take you through the 5 things that I did that taught me how to manual. These were just the 5 things that I remember doing that when I was trying to learn how to manual, they were sort of tricks. I guess they'd be a bit of tips, but it's basically the 5 things that I just did that ended up teaching me how to manual and then how to get good at manuals. This is different from a typical how-to video. It's going to be pretty high level. There's lots of great videos out there that teach you about all the proper techniques, you know, getting into the meerkat position, pulling up in the correct way. I'm going to sort of gloss over all of that and just skip to the things that I actually did. For example, the first thing that I did was I learned to just pull up. It's going to sound really obvious, but really the first step in learning how to manual is just getting used to that pulling up motion. And now, a lot of videos are talking about how you really want to avoid pulling with your arms, you got to push with your legs and all that kind of stuff. But when you're learning to manual, it's really hard to take these tips and turn them into movements on the bike. And so really my advice and what I did was I just kept pulling up. Even though at the time it was the wrong technique, just getting used to pulling that front tire off the ground is really going to help you. It just is getting you used to that feeling of, okay, the front tire is off the ground, back wheel is still on the ground, you're doing a manual. Really, technically, that counts. That's a manual. That's the first step. So I practiced that a lot. I just kept pulling up and pulling up, just getting used to getting that front tire on the ground. Really, at this point, if you're at this stage of the learning process, really, I wouldn't worry too much about technique. You know, you're just getting used to how the bike feels, how it feels to pull up the front tire. So just keep at it, keep practicing, and you'll notice that your body just gets used to that motion. And after a few days, maybe a week or so of practicing, it's just going to become a lot more natural. The second thing I did was I would rock back and forth using the front and rear brakes. At the time, I didn't really realize that this was going to help me learn how to manual, but what I was trying to do was sort of get into trials. I was trying to get up onto the back wheel. I actually think back to it, and learning how to get my weight back and pull the bike back, it's really what got me comfortable with being up on the back wheel. And that's really all manual is. That's step 2 in the things that I did to learn how to manual. Just practice this, see if you can get your front wheel up nice and high, see if you can balance it or hold it like a trials rider for a bit. That's the manual motion. And it's actually harder to hold yourself up on the back wheel when you're not moving. So if you get good at this, you're probably gonna have an easier time with manuals. Now, a bit of a pro tip, I guess. This is something that I wish I'd known when I was learning how to manual, is you should really take the time to practice how to fall. Falling, at least knowing how to fall, is super important because I took a bunch of falls onto my butt onto the ground and it hurts quite a bit. And when you're learning how to manual and you're not used to jumping off the back of the bike like that, it hurts a lot. Just take my word for it and avoid it. My pro tip for what I would do to avoid this is find a nice grassy area and maybe at first just practice jumping off your bike, sort of like you're about to do a no-footer and just land on the ground, go nice and slow. And then when you're feeling really confident, you can go back to that rocker motion and then pull so far back that you have to jump backwards off the bike. When you're not used to going up on the back wheel, again, you might fall over, but when you're doing it this way, at least you're not going that fast and you're landing on the grass. Hopefully you don't get too hurt. So the third thing I did that ended up teaching me how to manual was I would find a curb, and what I would do was 2 things. I would go to drop off the curb, but go as slow as I possibly could, or I would try and drop off the curb, but I would start the pull-up motion from as far away as I could. So this was just a really nice objective way to see, how far away from the curb can I pull up and still make the drop. And I think this is actually really useful for just your general trail riding skills too, because when you get into those positions or you're coming up on a drop and you don't have that much speed, you're really going to want to be able to pull up and hold yourself in that back wheel position to make it off that drop. So this is super useful for that. I would just find a nice curb, choose a spot where I think I can make it off, go at a decent speed and just pull up. You just go a little further back every time. This is just something that you can practice and just make very small incremental steps. The fourth thing that I did to learn how to manual was I found a nice big open parking lot. somewhere where there's a lot of painted lines with a bunch of parking spaces that are all equally divided. And what I used this for was to see, basically, once I could kind of start to manual, I could see how many parking spaces I could then manual. Maybe on the first day you could only get a half a parking space. What these big parking lots allow you to do is to just keep trying. So you pull up, you see how far you can manual, and then if you don't make it, you just pull up again and see how far you can go. And the nice thing is, you can just pull up again and again and again, and you just keep practicing over and over and over again. Now the fifth thing I did, which I think a lot of people don't really talk about or maybe gloss over, is practice. I just practiced so much. I remember after school practicing how to manual, you know, going to these empty parking lots, finding these curbs. I remember just hours, complete evenings just practicing manualing. I found it very difficult to learn how to manual. So if you're having trouble and you're not getting it, really all you have to do is keep trying. You've only failed to learn how to manual if you give up. If you keep trying, you're probably gonna get it, and then you learn how to manual. All right guys, thanks for watching. I hope those 5 tips or tricks that taught me how to manual might help you guys out. Maybe in the comments you can let me know if you know how to manual, how did you learn how to manual? Or maybe even better, if any of these tips end up helping you, that'd be great. Love to hear back from you guys. Thanks.